Welcome to The Big Rich Show. This podcast will focus on conversations with friends and acquaintances within the four-wheel drive industry. Many of the people that I will be interviewing, you may know the name, you may know some of the history, but let's get in depth with these people and find out what truly makes them a four-wheel drive enthusiast. So now's the time to sit back, grab a cold one, and enjoy our conversation.
Whether you're crawling the Red Rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2. Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Why should you read 4Low Magazine? Because 4Low Magazine is about your lifestyle, the four-wheel drive adventure lifestyle that we all enjoy. Rock crawling, trail riding, event coverage, vehicle builds, and do-it-yourself tech, all in a beautifully presented package. You won't find 4Low on the newsstand rack, so subscribe today and have it delivered to you. On today's episode of Conversations with Big Rich, we have Dave Schlossberg. Dave is the owner and founder of Poly Performance and Synergy Manufacturing, CEO of both, I believe it is your official title. Dave, thank you very much for coming on board and spending some time with us.
Well, hey, Rich, appreciate you reaching out to me and inviting me to be a part of what you got going on here. I think what you're doing is pretty awesome, and happy to be here chatting with you.
Well, great. So let's jump right in with both feet and get started at the very beginning. Where were you born and raised?
Born and raised in Northern California. Used to be a small little town, Folsom, California.
Okay.
At the base of the Sierra Nevada mountains there. Some people are familiar with it from the old Johnny Cash song, you know, Folsom Prison Blues. Yep. There. Yeah. And, you got Folsom Lake over there, and just kind of the gateway to the foothills, not too far from the Rubicon Trail, actually. So that is where I was born and raised, and most of my family, all of my family, still lives up there, and try to get back there as much as possible. And so grew up there, and went to, after I finished high school there, I ended up going down to Cal Poly State University in San Luis Obispo, and resided down here ever since. But do have a place up the hill, up near Lake Tahoe, that I venture back to as often as I can. So
yeah, and it survived the fire.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible that it did. So our little cabin up there was built originally by my grandpa in the 50s. It's up off what's called the Phillip Tract up near the Sierra Tahoe Resort and Echo Lake area.
Okay. And
when that Caldor fire blew through back in late August there, that burned the whole neighborhood down. I think 56 or 58 homes burned down. So it was basically my place that I had rebuilt back in 2012. And my neighbors on either side of me were the only surviving homes out of the fire. So pretty amazing to still be standing.
Yeah, I saw you post the pictures of the video that was circulating online with one of the news reporters. And it was strange because driving down the road, everything's just burnt out, still smoldering and everything, and then there's 3 houses in a row.
Yeah, so kind of an interesting story with that. So I rebuilt that place in 2012 and used a construction material kind of design. It's called ICF construction. It's like these foam blocks where you pour concrete in the middle of them, and then you can attach drywall to the inside, and you can stucco or do other stuff to the outside, but we use hardy board. So pretty much the whole house is built out of concrete, and the lot was cleared real good when we did that about 10 years ago. So I really attribute the construction that we used to build the place, and no exposed eaves and metal roof. That kind of allowed it to dodge the fire. And then the guy on the east side of me, 48 hours before that fire blew through, he came up there, and he's like an aerospace engineer type of guy, and he wrapped his whole house in tinfoil, and somehow that kept him from burning up. But my neighbor to the west of me there's no explanation on why he's still standing. It's pretty incredible. So I'm just happy to be still together in one piece, and really sad about the neighborhood and about all my neighbors up there, and a lot of history since that neighborhood's.
Right.
A lot of the people living up there were, there were cabins handed down through the generations there. So really sad to see that, but hopefully we'll be able to build back.
So an aerospace guy, engineer, using tinfoil for something besides a hat. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. It's and it wasn't just, they make special material to go do that, and that's not even what he used. He used just some industrial grade 2 thou thick aluminum foil he had left over from another job he was working on, and just jammed up there and stapled it all up to his house, and it's incredible, really.
Wow. So, growing up in Folsom, you're what, in your 40s, I think?
Yeah.
Okay.
42 as of today.
42. Yeah. Okay. Congratulations. Happy
Uh,
birthday.
Something like that. It wasn't too long ago. Yeah.
Okay. The Folsom, now back then it was kind of rural, a lot more so than it is now. El Dorado Hills hadn't started expanding.
Oh, none of that was there. I mean, he basically had, 2 main roads through town, and, the town was pretty much like that Sutter Street area and then the high school area. And then they just started really stacking it up and building it up. And boy, that is a different place today than when I grew up there. That is for sure. So.
Right. And the school's changed location, hasn't it? The old high school became.
Oh, yeah, that's actually, that was the high school is now one of the junior highs. My sister actually is a junior high school math teacher at that location.
Oh, really?
Where I went to high school. Yeah, and teaching junior high. And I think there's one. There might be 2 high schools there now. It's grown really a lot. I haven't paid too much attention to that sort of stuff, but it's like I said, that town has not what it used to be, but it's still cool. It's a cool place to hang out sometimes.
Yeah, it's pretty much built up all the way from Sacramento all the way up to Cameron Park, at least anymore.
Yeah, and they're really starting to cut and build stuff over near the Prairie City off-road OHV area where they have all the Ultra 4 races at.
Right.
I see them starting to develop all that stuff, so they still got some room to spread out over there before they start going up the hill. I mean, I guess they're already doing that. They're building all the way to Placerville now, so
right.
It seems like.
So, growing up at that time in Folsom, what were the things that you were interested in? What got your heart pumping?
Well, I mean, when I was a kid, I always been into automotive stuff, and playing with cars and then into RC stuff as you get a little bit older. But I think what got me going on the Jeep stuff really was I took my first Jeep trip when I was about 8 years old, and it was with one of the associates of my grandpa. Had a construction company up there, and his partner for the construction company had some Jeep stuff and a little cabin. And I remember just riding in the back of this old Willys flat fender, going up these Jeep trails, and just I got a couple photos. Maybe I'll send you one, but there's just smile from ear to ear.
Yep.
On me back then. And as I got older, you start reading magazines. Back then there was no internet, so when you're a kid, you got something you're interested. You're reading skateboard magazines, or you're reading some BMX magazines, or or you're reading some RC magazines, and then when you get a little older, you start reading some Jeep magazines, right? So
Yep.
I remember rushing home from school, always checking the mailbox to see what magazine was coming in the mail, and just reading Four-Wheel Drive Sport Utility magazine, JP magazine, Four Wheel and Off-Road magazine, had all the subscriptions that you could have, and just, really excited about that stuff. So, came of age of, where you could, start saving up and getting your license for a vehicle. I worked at a pizza joint over there, Pizzeria Classico. I think it's still around. They got a couple locations there, at least one in Folsom. And geez, I think I worked there on and off for 3 or 4 years, but, saving up dough to buy my first Jeep, which was a 91 Jeep Wrangler, and did some work to that, and just, doing some four-wheeling. It's funny, actually, back then, there wasn't, I mean, there was always stuff to go and do, but back then, where the Intel complex is at, that's where we'd go wheeling at. And so I remember vividly one time, we'd go at lunch. We had this deal in high school where we could go four-wheeling, like you could go off campus for lunch, and we'd always go four-wheeling at lunch. And I remember wheeling out there one time and seeing, I didn't know who it was at the time, but it was this dude in this old Commando with these, it was like, what was he rocking, like 35-inch boggers back then, which was it was a really big deal to see a Jeep like that.
And Commando, you must be talking Rogie.
No. This was Scott Whitaker, actually.
Okay, Whitaker. Okay.
Yeah, Billy Bob there, and I was like, we were just as kids seeing this dude climbing this giant rock pile. Back then, nobody's around and cutting these trails back there. It's just, I remember that was a pretty memorable memory for me. And then, actually, he ended up living a block or two away from a buddy of mine, and maybe 6 months, a year later, I remember seeing him start to build that old black CJ7 he had in an alleyway under a carport. This must have been 1995, 1996 maybe. Seeing that thing go together, and so that's what we did, and on the weekends we go up to up to Loon. I remember lots of trips up to Bassy Falls. I don't know if you've ever been up there before or not, but that was the spot for us. So being high school kids, you get up into the woods, driving driving Jeeps and trucks around, and doing some stuff you probably shouldn't be doing, boozing a little bit, driving in the woods and shit like that.
How Bassy got closed down.
Yeah. Not, we always tried to clean up, but you get some other clowns up there making a big mess of the place, and
right.
That's why that spot got shut down, I'm sure. But we were always real respectful with trying to clean up after ourselves being up there. But that was a cool spot, and I think you can hike back in there now still, but that's a really cool place to hike up to that waterfall back there. But lots of good memories wheeling back there and camping and having fun. So
yeah, I used to go up there a lot. That was it was an 86 Chevy 1-ton pickup, so it was probably 87, 88, 89, somewhere in there. And used to wheel up there and then running around with some of the guys from Georgetown, some of the Land Cruiser guys, and some of the Jeep guys, and we'd work our way up and around and come in the backside of Bassy, which
you take that top line, the road in from the top, and then loop around. Mm-hmm.
Those are some good times back then. I
remember a pretty good camping experience one time there, bear getting into camp pretty good. Anyways.
Would they get into your ice chest and?
Well, I had passed out in the back of this CJ7, and I had spilled a bunch of Goldschlager all over myself, and I just remember being real worried about that bear wanting to come in and get after that goodness, But he pulled the ice chest off the hood of that Jeep and got right down to business and tore that thing up, and I just.
So he didn't climb up there and try to lick all the Goldschlager off you, huh?
I don't. Not that time. No. He started to hit the air horn there, and that got him out of our stuff. But that was a interesting memory that I just dug up there chatting with you. I hadn't pulled that one out for a long time.
That's awesome. So then, when you went to school down there, and especially at high school, what kind of things besides general, math, English, that kind of stuff? What were you? What kind of classes are you taking?
So there's kind of an interesting little story about getting into school down here, and so, in high school and stuff, I'm not a super smart guy, but I try to work hard and put the time in and get things done that way. And so in high school, I didn't test very well. I didn't have very good test scores, and GPA was pretty mediocre. And so when I went to go apply to school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I was interested in engineering and building stuff and doing some things like that. And pretty much every college that I applied to, I didn't really put down a major. Just kind of it was general back then, and most of the places you didn't have to declare a major. And except for at Cal Poly at that time, which is still the case today, you got to declare something. So I knew I was interested in engineering, but I knew it was really competitive to get in. So what I did was I got the course catalog from the year prior and went through all the engineering majors that they offered, civil, electrical, mechanical. And then I stumbled upon a newer engineering division that they had started called materials engineering, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And I looked at the enrollments for all of the majors, and so you got hundreds of kids and all these other majors trying to get in. And then when I flipped to the materials engineering department, and it showed the enrollment, and there were 17 kids in the major from the year prior, I was like, holy shit! Like, there's not enough students to have a department here. They probably want to juice that department a little bit. So I applied under that, and actually Cal Poly was the only university that accepted me. I was denied at every other college that I applied to, minus a couple other state schools.
So you worked this system. Awesome.
Yeah, just you look at the numbers, and I kind of subscribe to the philosophy that there's always an angle,
Right.
So you gotta find the angle and see what the angle is, and kind of work it that way,
That was good. That I don't think. Obviously, there was probably a lot of people that didn't think that way.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Even to this day, I think it's, people, it's still a super competitive school. Like, unless you have like a 4.2 GPA and like SAT score of like 1500, like, I don't even think you're considered. So, I get some people that ask me, or, oh, hey, I want to go to school here. Like, what's the deal? And then I kind of I'll lay that story out, and then they're like, oh, that makes pretty good sense.
Because once they have your money and you're there, you can probably move around.
Well, that's another story, and I can chat about that here real quick. But okay. Just recently, I helped a family friend get in under kind of the same deal. So what I did is, I was studying engineering. I was doing okay on the major coursework and stuff like that, but I was just getting my ass kicked on some of the, engineering support classes, like the high-end calculus stuff and the physics stuff. Like, I would study for hours and hours and hours, and just like I just couldn't do it. Like I just couldn't do it, and so I was, walking the line on academic probation all the time, every other quarter. And then I hooked up with a buddy of mine, and he's like, hey, he kind of was in the same spot. He was in another engineering department and was having a tough time, and he came across another major. It's called industrial technology, and it was out of the College of Business. And basically what that was a mix between like engineering and business. So, but not getting too deep on either. And it kind of geared up more towards like engineering management type of discipline that they were trying to develop. And that's what I transferred into. I was actually, they have horror stories about transferring around school, or at least at Cal Poly still to this day. And, I remember going in on a Monday, and I made an appointment with the head of that department at the time. His guy's name was Dr. Fred Abedia. He was a really wonderful guy. And he sat me down, and we talked about what the deal was. And through engineering, I had completed a lot of the like the prerequisite classes to transfer over. And I had started the transfer process on a Monday. And by the end of the day, Friday of that same week, 5 days, I was able to migrate over to that department. And, I tell that story sometimes today, and people are just, that's totally unheard of. I mean, you got people taking 3, 4, 5, 6 quarters to transfer now, if they're even able to do it at all now. So, kind of just, again, one of those things, like when the stars align, just got to follow the wind there, doors open, and it's your responsibility to kind of poke your head in there and look around, and if it looks good, step on through,
Absolutely. And, you made the comment that you're not, the smartest guy, but it sounds to me like, and knowing you, I would disagree with that overall general statement, first of all.
Well, I'm smart about different stuff, like you
okay.
book smart, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how about that?
Okay, perfect. Because I know you got your shit together, because, you're running a successful business. You've built it from the ground up. So Congratulations on that. But getting back, you're in school, high school, your interests is in engineering, stuff like that. You're driving a Jeep, 91, 92 Wrangler, 95 Wrangler, something like that, you said?
91, I remember.
91.
First year of fuel injection.
Okay, so that was the YJ then, square headlight, right?
Yeah. Indeed, yep.
Okay. And then,
I remember to this day, throwing pizzas. That Jeep cost me $7,000 back then. I remember the day I bought it. So.
And throwing dough, slinging dough.
Throwing dough, saving up for Jeep shit.
Did you get involved in athletics in school?
Did I get involved in what?
Athletics.
Oh,
sports?
yeah. Not really, I'm not a super athletic guy, what did I do in high school? We were doing a lot with I like playing the drums a little bit. Still to this day, playing in an old punk rock band, but, in high school, the marching band was really competitive. So we were doing the drumline stuff and competing all over California, doing that sort of thing. And that took a lot of time. That was, 6-8 hours a week, plus, competition stuff on the weekend. So that was not, that's pretty I wouldn't say that's super athletic, but after some of those competitions, I mean, it's a lot of work. You're carrying drums, marching around, and by the time you get out of a performance like that, you're soaking wet.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, that was about the gist of what we were doing in high school. We were doing that, playing music and working on cars and trucks and stuff. So working on Jeeps. I remember helping a buddy of mine restore an old Alfa Romeo. We were doing that sort of stuff, and just doing that and trying to, the goal every weekend. The goal is trying to go camping somewhere, or party somewhere, So
Right.
it's kind of what we were doing.
Okay.
So not too much change once you get into college. You got involved with the Cal Poly had a really good off-road club. The Poly Goats is the name of it, and they're still around today. I think that's the oldest club on campus they have, actually. Started back in the 60s, if my memory serves me right. So just made a lot of lifelong friends I still have today from that club, and also being involved in the what else did I do in college? We were doing the Society of Automotive Engineers, the SAE club, where you build a little mini. They basically, the design constraints pretty much nothing, but they give you a 10-horse Briggs & Stratton motor and some basic design constraints, safety constraints basically, and you build a little buggy and go compete collegiately. I remember doing that for about 3 years. I was a lot was learned there, and that was a lot of fun too.
And with being involved in the club and then your materials engineering, but then switching over to the more business application, which was probably a pretty solid thing for what you're doing now.
Yeah, really. My education kind of lined up with what my day job ended up being, kind of. So it was kind of cool. But
yeah, mine didn't.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it does for most people, right? I think school's important, especially college degree. If you're going to go out and go to work somewhere, that sheet of paper, that degree is the door opener for you. That's the opportunity maker. That's the rest is up to you to make what you want of it. But I found that that's kind of the that kind of will set you above some of the rest if you're going to compete for a position somewhere, So
Absolutely,
you got that going, and the rest is on your own. But that's definitely, that helps open some doors to some others that might not have that or have access to an opportunity.
So when did Poly Performance come about? You were still in school though, weren't you?
Yeah. So I was in school. And you got to understand, this is the late 90s. So I want to say it was 99. So I had been in school. I was working at my first real job that I had down here was there was a mail order company called CCS Mail Order, and they did mail order skateboard and snowboard supplies. So I worked in a call center basically, and just answering the phone and hustling kids out of their parents' money, basically, was the job, if you will. So they, I don't know if, what the audience here is exactly, but back in the day, they'd send out these little mail order catalogs out, and you'd flip through the catalog and you'd pick the skateboard you wanted, with trucks you wanted, and the wheels you wanted, and it was my job to make sure that, when Johnny was calling up to order that he left with more than just a skateboard. He left with a new backpack, a pair of pants, and a fresh pair of, skate shoes or something, So I would say that job really helped kind of dial in and tune in my, my sales techniques and abilities, I guess you could say, and taught me how to be confident and work the phone a little bit, if that makes sense. And so after I'd been working there a while, I took some time off of school and I ended up getting a position up at a company just outside of Folsom in Rancho Cordova called Rubicon Express.
Oh yeah.
You might have heard of that. So, I think that was in '99. So I started there, basically just, assembling control arms and assembling parts and packaging things and doing stuff like that. And by the time I left, I was sitting in a welding booth all day, burning metal, building sway bar links and XJ shackles and Jeep TJ track bars and all kinds of weird shit. We were welding up. So most of that stuff they were making over there was made at a fab shop around the corner. They weren't doing too much in house besides the assembly, packaging, and then the outbound shipping side of stuff. But they were doing some stuff, and I was a kid there in 115-degree Sacramento heat, welding in my cut-off jean shorts and some old ratty skate shoes, catching my shoes on fire. I remember many times.
Some jorts, huh?
And that's how we did it, So after spent some time there, and that was a good opportunity for me right there, because that showed me kind of behind the scenes on how stuff worked, and I was really interested in that. So after leaving there and going back to school, this is late '90s, so the internet's starting to pop right now, and so what I did is I was back in school, and I was working. Where was I working back then? I was going to school. I was working on campus a little bit, teaching one of the metals labs, and then I also had a job at Gateway Computers, so doing some more sales stuff. So during the day I was selling computers and going to school, and then just trying to figure out what my next step was. And so I remember this experience pretty vividly. I was laying in the back seat of a Toyota 4Runner on our way to one of the competitions for the SAE Club, the Mini Baja competitions, and just smashing Old English 40s in the back of this 4Runner heading out to Kansas. And I came up with the name Poly Performance, actually. So Poly is Latin for many. Well, I had been, let me rewind just a minute from there. So I was really interested in off-road stuff, and the internet was going on right then. So I knew I wanted to do something maybe with some internet sales and maybe selling stuff online, because nobody was really doing that at that time. And we were pretty involved with the Pirate 4x4 site, so lots of banner going on there, and just thought that I wanted to start selling some off-road stuff online. So what had happened was like you'd get chatting with a lot of these guys on the internet, and they're this is when people were starting to link stuff. People were getting away from leaf. They weren't getting away from leaf spring stuff, but linking a Toyota or a Jeep started to kind of be a thing. And so we sat down and learned a bit on how all that stuff sort of works. And so we'd start giving pointers to guys on Pirate about setting up link suspension stuff. And then you'd have guys trying to source parts. So what happened was you'd have Hillbilly Bob out of Alabama, who's building an old Toyota, trying to stick some Rockwell axles underneath this thing and link it up. Guys like that were calling places like Off-Road Warehouse and Cartech, trying to get advice on how to set suspension up and stuff like that. And when you can only understand every third word this guy's saying, they're pretty much getting hung up on when they're calling places like that back then.
Right.
And so I speak Hillbilly, so I get on and try to help these guys. And So what happened was being involved with the SAE club, I got connected with a rod end supplier, and they had a pretty sweet deal for students buying some rod ends, and had another buddy working at a machine shop, and just started making some parts, and the machine shop was actually a shock company, a company called Sway Away. I think AFE owns that now. AFE's making the shocks over there for them, but back in the day, the machine shop was making some machine rod end hardware for me on the swing shift. And so what I did is, I just thought that that's what I wanted to do. So roll forward to me riding in the back of this 4Runner, smashing old E40s on the way out to Kansas. I just, we were at Cal Poly, so Poly was the name that I came up for this company name. So Poly is Latin for many. So it was Poly Performance Off-Road Products originally. And if anyone's listening, using the Wayback Time Machine, you can go back on the internet Wayback Time Machine and see some of the first iterations of the Poly Performance website back then. But after I came up with the name, what I did was I just went in this little 8x8 room I shared with this guy by the name of Pips, and Pips knew a little bit about some computer stuff, and I knew a little bit. Had taken an HTML programming class in college. It was a requirement, actually, so that wasn't by choice. It just so happened that I had taken that and learned some basic HTML programming, and bought a 30 rack of Budweisers and didn't come out of my room for 4.5 days, I think, and taught myself some basic HTML programming in there, and launched my first e-com website like that using some basic some script from PayPal back then, and and just started slinging some rod ends, helping guys build link suspensions in Alabama. Basically, was the start of it, and just kind of one thing led to another. Because I had Sway Away making some machine parts on the swing shift, became friendly with the sales manager there, and got going with selling some shocks, and just kind of started stacking one thing onto another and slinging more stuff, and then got connected with the guys at iBox, started selling some springs, and then we started selling some fuel cells, and we started selling some seats, and shit, just one thing led to another. It's kind of crazy. So,
was everything drop shipped back then, with selling seats and fuel cells and stuff like that, or did you have to order it in and then reship it?
Like some stuff was like that, but shocks as they are today were still kind of hard to get a hold of back in the day. So you have you'd have some inventory. You got my sock drawers full of rod ends, and the closet's full of fucking coil springs, and you got stacks of shocks under your bed, and that's kind of how it started. So not too long after that, I realized that I needed to get some space, and got a little shop shared with a buddy of mine, and just started buying more stuff and trying to sell more stuff, and I remember back then, I'd say, geez, if I could sell a pair of shocks a day, I'd be set for life. And it's definitely spooled way up from there. We're selling pallets of shocks a day now, not just a pair. So, but back then that was kind of the deal. But so Poly Performance is really born, I would say, late 2001 ish, and you know, had our first real set of books started January of '02, if my memory serves me right, and just started going from there. You know, I remember finishing school right around then, and my parents telling me like, "Hey, when are you going to get a real job?" type, you know, that sort of stuff.
They're not saying that anymore, are they?
No, not anymore. But that was kind of the talk that I'd have every time I'd chat with them or go and see them. You know, like, "Hey, are you done goofing off yet? You're going to go get a real job?" And so that's kind of how that happened. But you know, I'm not a super smart guy when it comes to stuff, so I knew that you know, what I had just figured out how to list stuff and sell stuff online. You know, this is before, you know, Amazon was just barely a thing, you know, and they were just selling books. You know, I didn't realize at the time that Bezos, that was just the books thing was just a tester for selling everything.
Right.
Right. And so once he got the book thing figured out, he just started stacking on and adding on everything. So I knew that everybody would be selling stuff online, and you know, kind of, you know, '03, '04, you know, I'm like, better think a little bit harder about trying to make some things, you know. So the guy I went to college with, we kind of partnered up with, he was working at Swayaway designing shock absorbers along with another buddy of ours. And we started just trying to make some other stuff. So he was working on another Jeep company in Bakersfield, and July of '05, him and I, we started Poly Performance Manufacturing.
Okay.
And that was a business to just make stuff that we wanted to make, you know, items that we were buying from other manufacturers that were not of good quality, had really bad lead times or had really bad margin. You know, that was kind of the low hanging fruit because there was sales history there already. So we knew if we could make those, they'd probably go all right. And so doing that, and then knew that there was a new Jeep platform coming. So this is fast forwarding a little bit further. Now we're into like 2007. And so the Jeep JK was coming out, and that was a new platform. We knew that all the Jeep manufacturers were going to need to start over, not from scratch per se, but start over making stuff. So started making a couple steering parts, and you know, I think the hardest thing in the beginning was just sourcing things, figuring out where to get, you know, where do we get the bushings to make the control arms, and where do we get the tie rod ends to make the steering components, and where do we get the, you know, who do we have make coil springs for us, and you know, so lots of time and energy went into trying to figure all that stuff out, and then stepping into, you know, trying to make stuff, like making 5 or 10 or 20 of something. It's not too bad, you know, but once you start seeing some orders come in for some big quantity, you know, you really start scratching your head with like, hey, we should really figure out, you know, we got something here, something's going, you know, and how to get it figured out to where you can make more of these widgets we were coming up with. So,
and back then, what was, you know, was there one thing that stood out that came along and you just knew that was kind of like a turning point? Or was it just, you know, everything just kind of went?
I mean, everything was really, really slow in the beginning, I would say. You know, one of the big turning points for us was we were making some, I think it was a Jeep rocker guard. It was a pretty cool, like, boat side rocker guard that had a high clearance. It was a cool piece. Nobody had really made anything like that. And you know, we were starting to get calls from, like, four-wheel parts and like Quadratech guys interested in carrying some of the stuff that we were making. So keep in mind that, at the time, this is Polyperformance Manufacturing was the name of our company for making parts. So there's Polyperformance and Polyperformance Manufacturing.
Right.
And, these guys like four-wheel parts and Quadratech, they were not, they liked what we got going on, but the Polyperformance name competed with what they had going on, right?
Right.
So they didn't want to carry Polyperformance stuff because Polyperformance was selling the stuff anyways. So we had just finished our suspension packages, and back then, you'd have like Rubicon Express had the Extreme Duty line, like that was what they called their suspension line, and Terraflex had their LCG stuff, and every suspension manufacturer kind of had a name to what they were doing. So I just remember jumping out of the shower one day, and I'm kind of into alliterations, I was what we were making suspension stuff, so what kind of would jive with suspension. And so I came up with I had a buddy down here in St. Louis that had a screen printing business. It was called Synergy Screen Printing. And I thought, well, Synergy, what does that mean? So you look that up, and it means that the sum of all the components is greater than the individual components by themselves. So I thought that really made sense for the things we were making. That the kits were definitely the way to go if you're using all the parts that we were making together as opposed to the individual components. So we dubbed the suspension line, the kits, the Synergy Suspension Kit. And through a recommendation of the president and the guy running Quadratech, a buddy of mine, he goes, "Hey, you really need to change the name of what you got going on so we can sell it and not feel like we're competing against you." And I said, okay. So Synergy Suspension was born shortly after. So we kind of peeled off all the things we were making and kind of started to land it under the Synergy Suspension name. And, I would say 2008, when did that happen? That was, probably around, maybe 2009, 2010 was when that rolled out like that. Maybe 2009. Timeline gets a little fuzzy for me sometimes.
Nope, I understand. There's so much I've forgotten.
So anyways, that's where that was born. So the product line, became Synergy Suspension, and we started selling stuff through distribution. Once getting a couple key distribution channels lined up was really a big deal. Once we got into like doing four-wheel parts and doing Quadratech and stuff like that, things kind of started to spool up pretty heavy. And just kept our heads down and kept digging the ditch, and roll into 2011, I think, if I'm recalling this correctly. Partner that I had for Synergy there wanted to move on, and so he left, and I continued driving that boat on my own till today, essentially. But just over time we started making more than just suspension stuff. So, and actually got into a little bit of a legal battle about our name. There's another company that sounds similar to what we have that wanted to fight me a little bit about our name. So from Synergy Suspension, we became Synergy Manufacturing, which made more sense to me because we made more than just suspension components.
Right.
And, but spent a bunch of money fighting with somebody that wanted to fight, I guess, and we were able to still keep our name, so that was cool. Didn't need to go through the whole rebranding process. And So that's kind of how that was born. And, along the way, you try to push as much stuff you're making on your own through your regular retail channel. So we try to, even to this day, we try to sell as much Synergy gear through Poly Performance as we can, even though Poly Performance has, I don't know, 70 or 80 different brands that we sell currently. So that's kind of how that works. So Poly Performance also wholesales a lot of stuff now too. Probably like 30% of the business there is probably B2B through doing the wholesale stuff, and that does real good for us, as well as taking care of our regular retail customers.
Excellent.
So hopefully that painted the picture a little bit about how that works and how that happened, I guess.
Absolutely.
But I did leave out a pretty important part. There's a lot of going to events and doing stuff back in the day, and I remember going to a lot of your events that you would put on, Rich. I remember when your kids were little, out there helping you set those courses up, and I'd be out there and my little 10x10 Walmart Easy Up and a banner, and trying to talk to guys competing and enthusiasts out there watching, and just doing all that stuff from the beginning. Doing the first going to some of the, what was it, ARCA? Is that what was back then?
ARCA, then You Rock.
And You Rock,
and then we did the Cal Rocks and We Rock.
Yep, all that stuff. But I remember going out there and sleeping in the back of my truck and hanging out and watching guys compete back when nobody would show up. And it was fun. That was a lot of fun back then.
Absolutely. And you were able to build the business and expand during, it was the dark ages, I guess, that 08, 09, 010.
Well, see, that was an interesting time because we were still new. I mean, still pretty new, and business was growing. We were adding lines and selling more stuff. And through that whole economic turn, the 06, 07, 08, like, there's no down years for us. I go back and I can go and review the financials back then, and there's no year where we took a hit. I mean, it would just kept going and going and going. We just we put our heads down and just hammered right through it. So
that's great, because so many companies that were smaller companies, but they were there was a hard survival time back then. The JK kind of kept things going, but
absolutely. I would say the other thing that happened then, and there was the e-commerce thing still wasn't fully, like, there were companies fighting it still and not wanting to get on board. And, those companies that fought e-commerce are the ones that got left in the dust. And, not just automotive and what we were doing, but that's like across the board. Like, I know I got a buddy of mine who he had a big bike distribution business. It was all through mail order catalog, and he fought the internet and didn't get on board when it was time. And fuck, that guy got smoked. I mean, he's doing it today and things are okay, but if you didn't get on board with e-com early on, you're getting left in the dust. So
right,
I was just right place, right time, and I could read the writing on the wall there. This is, e-commerce was the wave of the future. Guys want to sit in their underwear and order parts from their living room while they're pounding beers and watching NASCAR. You know what I'm saying? So, that guy doesn't want to go to the store. Maybe he does if he can get some good help over the phone, though. Like, why leave the couch?
True. Yep.
So, but I will say, I do attribute a lot of the success that we had, early on, just being real active on Pirate 4x4. Fortunately, that site was born in my backyard. So, Lance Clifford started that thing, and he just, he lived up the road from me. I wasn't tight with him back then, but, some of the guys that were in that club lived down the hill in the neighborhood. So, just getting connected that way. And then, it just so happens that another one of the guys that owned Pirate Camo, you're familiar with him.
Yeah, Eric. Yep.
So Mr. Eric Linker, he was living in Morro Bay, California, which is 15 minutes from me, and he was over there running his glitter. He had a glitter factory. The guy was selling, get 50-gallon drums of glitter in and break it up and put it in little packages and such at the Walmart and Joann's and Michael's and stuff like that. And actually, I was planning on. I had talked to him about going to work for him actually when I was finishing up school before my business started to get some traction. I remember one instance vividly, selling rod ends to him for a buggy he was having John Hall build in his backyard in probably 2000, selling rod ends out of the back of my Tacoma. So, but again, just right place, right time. Like, I just happened to run into that guy, and he was basically running that board, living 15 minutes from me. It's kind of incredible.
Right.
But we were, Poly Performance was the first paid vendor on that site back in the day, and that was where we went to sling parts and help guys build rigs.
Yep. It helped me get things started. It was kind of the advertising there. I mean, God, when I got on that board, it was when I met Lance and Rogie. It was down there in Arizona that first year at ARCA, and found out where they were from, and my wife was from that area, and knew, people knew each other and stuff, and I knew I was moving back to California, and that's what we ended up doing. And then I started CalRocks at that point, and first one was November 2001.
Now, I have a very, very vivid memory of Lance and Rogie. It was an ARCA event in not St. George, but what's the
Cedar City.
Cedar City. And these guys were wheeling their shit, and what was it? It was like obstacle A something, and there was a climb at the top of this hill, and they were in a Land Cruiser, I think, and they were high centered on an obstacle, and fucking, this is the craziest shit. Bob was driving, Lance was spotting. Bob throws this thing into low first gear and just lets the clutch out, and the tires are just creeping, and they both get out and start pushing and pulling on this thing, and there's nobody driving it, and it's just the fucking crowd was going ape shit. You had to have been there for that. Did you remember?
Yeah.
You remember that at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They stayed at my house during that Cedar City event.
God, what year was that, Rich?
That first Cedar City event was 99.
Yeah, 99, dude. That was the craziest shit I ever seen.
That's when Lance stepped on the fire extinguisher, and it blasted in his face because he was hanging onto the cage trying to rock it back and forth, and stepped on the fire extinguisher, and
people were losing it. It was bananas.
It was crazy.
Yeah, what a great time.
So
anyway.
Yeah, so Rubicon still kind of the home trail for you?
Oh yeah, that's anything NorCal up there. That's the home track for me. So I try to hit. I do a lot of events now, and most of the events that I do are just me stuck at a vendor booth, talking to people, which is fine. I have a lot of fun doing that, but I do like going out and wheeling, so I try to make sure that we're hitting Jeepers Jamborees for every year is a good trip for me. It's not just a work event, it's a wheeling trip that's fun. So I always like to try to do all the Jeepers Jamboree trips, the big and small trip. And it's been a while since I hit the Sierra Trek event, but Fordyce and stuff is really fun too. So anything up there is all good, and we got our little NorCal office that we can crash at and work out of if we need to up there. So, and it's nice to, anytime I go past through, I'm able to go see and check in on my family. My parents are still up there, and my great aunt and uncle, and my sister and her husband, and my niece and nephew are up there. So always a good time to be able to go see them.
And they, and like you said, your parents don't give you a hard time about getting a real job anymore.
Not too much anymore. It's grown quite a bit. We have for me by myself starting, we're running what do we got now? 50 guys between both companies, and we're in two big buildings looking for more space now, and things are cruising. Running a business is it's a crazy thing, and it has its highs and it has its lows, but once you get that snowball rolling and you get some momentum behind it, you can kind of relax a little bit, but here and there. But that's not how I roll. We're always, to me, enough is never enough. I keep pushing for more and more and more, and trying to hammer on it some more and get more done and invent more things and sell more stuff, and just kind of keep pushing it. It's just, I equated it, being the coach of the baseball team or the football team, where, you gotta keep moving the ball forward, and, sometimes you gotta back up and punt, but, sometimes you gotta throw the Hail Mary, and sometimes you just gotta keep your head down and run the ball. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
Running a business to me, I think is, I've never been a coach of a sports team, but I kind of equate that to what I do now. My job's to make sure we got good people at the office doing the work, and I'm happy to say we got some guys there that've been there a long time, that that have put the blood, sweat, and tears in along with me, that I've been able to take with me along the ride. And as the business grows, I'm able to help take care of these people more and more, and not just because of me, it's because of their own hard work too. So I for sure wouldn't have nothing if it wasn't for our people. We got great people working with us at the office. So.
And you're manufacturing your own stuff for Poly, but Poly is it? There's not it's not truly a brick and mortar. It is all e-commerce, correct?
No, I mean, we have a store where people can kind of come in. So we do have a service department where, we're building trucks every day. We're building Toyotas and Jeeps and shit. I think we built what did we build last week? A van, doing some of these van jobs, a little bit. So I don't know. We'll take on any job as long as it's paying all right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And we got a little bit of bandwidth. So we're not in a highly populated area, so it's not like there's a ton of service work like that. But there's enough, and we're able to be pretty picky about what jobs we pick up. The guy that shows up with a 88 half-ton Chevy that wants to put some cheap lift on there. Those are the guys we'll tell them we just can't help them out. But somebody rolls in with a new 392 JL and they want to go to town on it, like, we'll help them with that sort of deal.
Right.
So,
what do you think of all the what's the best word, the best way to phrasing this? So many companies are being bought up. They're creating all of these like keystones and financial investment companies that are buying up and putting together all these larger company, creating.
Yeah, there's some stuff out there happening. I see, the private equity groups coming in wanting to get a piece of this automotive space that's popping pretty heavy, you know. So there's outsiders that come in that try to buy their way in, and there's existing groups that are involved in the space trying to basically add what's called a bolt-on, you know, bolting on to what they got going on.
Right.
That's definitely a thing that's happening out there.
Are you're not looking for something like that? You know, build it and sell it. Do you want to?
I mean,
if the
I'm
right
the
offer.
type of guy. Well, I'm the type of guy that, you know, everything's for sale. It just has to be. If you don't have that mindset with things, then I think that's bad business to me. So everything's always for sale. You know, am I out there trying to work a deal or do something? Nah. I mean, I'm happy with what I got going on. I'm extremely content with what we're doing and how we're doing it. And you know, we don't have any money problems. I got plenty, you know, everything's real good right now, you know, especially you would have thought with this COVID stuff happening that that would have slowed things down, people getting real nervous, you know, when that started happening. They started locking things down in the beginning of 2020, you know, but with the government printing a bunch of money and people working from home and still making what they were making, you know, they got a little extra money and they're not spending money traveling and going on vacation. So, you know, the guy that's working from home, he's taking his 15 minutes, he goes out to his garage, he's staring at his Jeep in pieces in his garage. He's like, shit, I might as well start working on this thing or put it together. Or, hey, I want to buy this for it, or I want to buy that for it. And, you know, pretty much any of the recreation that was happening at that time, you know, is people going out on their own, you know, people going out and doing their own Jeep trips and their own camping trips and things like that, where, you know, there weren't a lot of people involved. Any type of event where you could kind of go off and do it on your own without a bunch of people, you know, that's kind of the stuff that was popping. Boat stuff was popping, RV stuff was popping, camping, four-wheeling stuff's popping.
Still, you go buy vehicle, you go buy any new car lot, and companies are lucky. These car lots dealers are lucky if they've got 25% of their lot filled.
Oh yeah, no, that's a whole nother topic. That's some supply chain stuff that they're having issues with. So, I mean, it's crazy because being in California, I remember when, you know, in March, you know, when they kind of shut everything down, like, I remember the police department called me and they said, hey, you know, we're shutting down. Everything's supposed to be shut down. You're not supposed to be operating. And I told them to fuck off. I just said, hey, I'm going to keep working. I don't care what the fines are. You can come arrest me, put me in handcuffs and haul me off. As long as my guys want to go to work, I'll be there to open the doors and let them come to work, you know? And, it was just, my mind was totally blown that people were like, that was a thing. Like, the government was trying to shut everything down. It was madness. And I still look at it right now and I go, Rich, has the world gone mad? What in the hell is this?
The last 2 years, yes, it has.
Yeah. So, but back in the beginning, like that's how it happened. You know, I did file some paperwork and claim, you know, there was some exemption stuff out here in California. You know, automotive repair service type stuff was an area that was exempt. You know, but I didn't even play that. You know, that the police tried to shut me down twice. Actually, that happened 2 times. And again, I just, you know, when they called again, I said, no, you can come arrest me and haul me to jail if you think that that's what you got to do. And I don't care what the daily fines are, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, whatever you want to bill me. A, I wouldn't pay it, and B, I'm just going to throw it in the trash, you know? And they didn't do shit. It made me so angry that they were doing that. And then B, like, I just keep thinking like how like, I just kept thinking how soft people were to just abide.
To roll over.
They just fucking rolled. People are just, they got, like, where were all the people standing up for themselves? I mean, there were a lot of people that did, you know, but it just, man, I don't know. I didn't subscribe to that, you know, and, you know, COVID's a very real thing. There's people getting sick. I've known several people that have passed away from it, and I'm not here to say that it's not a real thing or whatever, you know. It's definitely a real thing, you know, and if you're worried about it and you think you're subject to getting it worse and making you sicker, then stay away, stay at home, get vaccinated, do whatever you got to do. But, you know, geez, I know people that have gotten sick and gotten some real weird medical issues that arise after that vaccine also. So it's hard to say one way or the other. I know for me, I just, you know, like I said, as long as my guys were willing to come to work, and, you know, we sent everybody home that could work from home, and guys that wanted to come to work, I was there every day to make sure we were open and they were able to work and feed their families, you know.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So what's next? Anything on the horizon that you can share?
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, over time, you know, Pauly's just does what we do over there. We're just, you know, it's pretty much the game right now is just having stuff. So, you know, our purchasing department has got the green light to just drop big bombs on trying to get stock. You know, shocks are a pretty big game for what we do, and all the shock companies are like, it's getting a little bit better, but they're looking at like 12-month lead times. So, you know, we're having to order a year in advance. So you're dropping big, you know, 6-7 figure POs on stuff to try to get ahead of it. 'Cause it's like, it's one of those things where if you have it, you'll sell it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, just dropping big bombs on trying to get inventory and just trying to have stuff. So a lot of these, you know, like 30% of our business at Pauly's B2B. So a lot of customers buying from Keystone, Premier, Meyer, Turn 14, stuff like that. So we're able to get some of those customers buying from us just because we have stuff that some of these other guys don't. Pauly's always been really good at having some weird exotic stuff, you know, stock and bypass shocks and weird big coilover stuff and just kind of stuff that some of those other places won't stock. We're pretty good at having, and then, you know, pushing our own brand of stuff and, you know, just stacking on and doing that sort of thing. So Pauly's just cruising, doing that stuff. Synergy, you know, we had we're not all the way done with our JL, JT stuff. We still got some other suspension stuff that we're working on. But we're probably 80% done on the development on those platforms. Our Ram truck product stuff at Synergy is really doing well. A lot of the steering components we make. So we cover all second gen stuff to current. So 94 to today, we cover a lot of steering components. It's pretty popular for us. And then what are we at? About 3 or 4 months away now from launching some Super Duty stuff. So 05 and up Super Duty steering stuff we got coming. Some stuff I've never seen anybody else do. Really, really cool stuff. So what kind of sets our steering components apart, especially on like steering tie rods, stuff like that. So we like to heat treat a lot of the bars that we're doing, where I don't think any other manufacturers heat treating their steering components. So that when you're doing that process on some of this high carbon alloy stuff, you're able to double the tensile strength of the material. So our steering stuff is pretty much bulletproof. You see a lot of guys too. Aluminum products are really hot right now. in that space, aluminum control arms, aluminum steering components. And we've looked at doing that, but aluminum is pretty dangerous in my book. You know, it doesn't have a infinite fatigue life like carbon alloys do. So you end up having some failures with that material over time. And when it goes, it kind of goes out of the blue. So don't really recommend doing that stuff for that reason. It's pretty dangerous. So we try to stick to running those heat-treated bars and doing stuff like that. So we have that going right now. Super Duty stuff's really close. Doing some more ball joint applications with Synergy, and then right at the end of the year there, I picked up a Bronco. So lots of buzz about that new Bronco.
Yep.
Coming, and you know, we got really good at making steering components. So I got a couple ideas for some steering components on that platform. Lots of guys having issues, guys breaking tie rods and blowing the racks out of them. So after KOH here, we're gearing up to get out to be a part of that event next, or what is it, a couple weeks out? What are we, 2 weeks out of the race right now? So
yep.
We'll be out there for that, and then once we get back to the lab there, we'll start tearing a brand new Bronco apart and making some Bronco parts and doing that. You know, we're just real busy staying on top of making the existing product line that we're making at Synergy, and you know, just not trying to do anything too different, but just, you know, just a couple things that I think it'll do well, and just trying to move the ball forward. And, you know, again, with a lot of the supply issues that are happening right now, we're just trying to concentrate on having product, you know, if you have it, you'll sell it kind of thing right now. So it's not a whole lot of competition in regards to that, just because a lot of people are running out of stuff. So, you know, if you're able to have it, you're getting first dibs on guys wanting, you know, if you make a replacement part for a Jeep JL, and there's 3 other competitors to that, but you know, they're all sourcing stuff overseas or having supply issues on material. You know, if we're able to beat people to the punch like that, that seems to be really the hot ticket for us.
Perfect. Cool.
That, and well, the last thing we got going on is we're getting ready to do like a dealer portal at Poly. So, you know, always continuing on our retail game, but we'll be having a wholesale side back end where guys can log in and see live inventory, see what we have, and place orders online that way, similar to, you know, how Trans and Meyer and some of these other big wholesalers have. So that should be, I'm shooting for end of the second quarter to get that going. So that'll be cool if we can get that rolling. But yeah, other than that, it's just keeping our heads down and keep working. And, you know, we're just trying to take real good care of this business that we have, you know, because if we take care of this business and treat it right and don't abuse it, it'll take care of all of us, you know, not just, you know, me. I'm just, my main priority and goal is just to make sure we're taking good care of our guys and our crew, you know, that our employees are everything to me, and I love all of them, and I work real hard to take care of them, because if we do that, I know that the rest will be taken care of. So
perfect. Well, on that note, I'd like to say thank you so much for coming on board and sharing your history and how the business, how you were able to grow the businesses and develop those. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's been a long road, 22 years ish, and you know, I would end it with, there's no silver bullet and a magic thing that was done. You know, it's just a lot of years of hard work and digging in the ditch, and you'll dig and dig and dig, and just every once in a while you'll stick your head up and you'll see kind of where you've come from, and you know, and just be proud of the work that you did, and be proud of your guys, and be proud of the team, and and just put your head back down and keep digging. There's no magic ticket. There's no silver bullet. There's just a lot of hard work and a lot of trying to have the right guys and the right help. That's it.
Cool. All right.
So.
All right, Dave.
All right, Rich.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the time. Appreciate being a part of your I don't know, do you call it a podcast?
Yeah, it's a podcast. Yep. Yeah,
okay. So yeah, I appreciate it very much, and feel free to call me back anytime you want.
All right, and I'll let you know here when we're going to air it, and hopefully you'll share it.
Sounds good. We'll share it out, and I'll catch you on the lake bed, hopefully.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right,
Bye.
buddy. Take it easy.
If you enjoy these podcasts, please give us a rating. Share some feedback with us via Facebook or Instagram, and share our link among your friends who might be like-minded. Well, that brings this episode to an end. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll catch you next week with Conversations with Big Rich. Thank you very much.